Hi, this is Jeff Welch with Brandman University. Today I'm going to present to you on avoiding common mistakes in writing and formatting for APA. So our objective today again is avoiding errors. The objective of this presentation is to help students to avoid writing and formatting errors that are common to writers that are new to the APA writing and citation format, or as a quick review for those of you who have experienced it before. The OWL at Purdue is an excellent resource for students referring to really all academic writing styles, particularly the APA, MLA, and Chicago style. For our purposes, APA is the most important one. But I would like to encourage you, whenever you have a question about a detail or a specific item, go to the OWL at Purdue. It's a great resource and it'll really get you off to a good start. There are many academic writing formats, but the three most common are the MLA, Chicago style, and APA. For the purposes of this presentation, we're going to focus on the APA. Now we do have a little bit of a problem. The MLA and the APA appear in some ways very similar, but in fact they are different. They are not the same. Many students are used to MLA because this is the format that many high schools use, and it is a format that you may have been introduced to in English class early in your college career. But again, please realize that there are some important differences between the two formats, and you really want to focus on the APA. The APA format was invented by the American Psychological Association. For details on that, you can look at apastyle.org as the official source. But the field of education has also adopted the APA as its official writing style. Nearly every education course in the United States, and certainly every education course at Brandman University, will utilize the APA as its academic format. You'll also find many other courses outside of the education field at Brandman will also use APA. So it's critical that you understand it and understand it well. So we're going to go through some of the features next. One of the distinguishing features that you see in the APA format is literally the first thing that you see. At the top of the title page, you'll see what's referred to as a running head. A running head is a shortened version of the title up to 50 characters. To the right of the running head, you will also see the page number, in this case, page number 1. Below the running head, you will see the title. The title should be about 12 words. It should be on no more than 2 lines. Underneath the title, you should include your first and last name. If you have a degree already, you're actually going to leave that off. So just name it first and last name. Below your first and last name, you'll include your institution in this case. Beginning on the second page, we'll see something that looks a little bit like the running head, but is actually a little bit different. This feature is called the header. And the header is sometimes a bit shorter than the running head, but again, it's a similar shortened version of the title. We also see on the right-hand side the page number, in this case, page number 2. You'll want to get to use the headers and footers feature in Microsoft Word and pay very close attention to how they're used. This will save you a lot of time rather than writing it the old-fashioned way. On the second page, one of the unique features of the APA format is what is called the abstract. The abstract is a very short summary of your paper, particularly the main points, conclusions, arguments of your paper. You really want to be brief, preferably right around 150 words, but in no case more than 250. This is the only thing that will be on the page. You will skip everything underneath it with the exception of the keywords if you choose to include them. You'll notice that I included the keywords APA, writing, abstract, header, and references. Now, the abstract is a common feature of APA, but some professors will have it as optional, some will require it. Pay attention to your professor's requirements, but it's a good idea to get used to it and even practice writing it. Even if it's an optional, you might want to write it anyway, just so that you'll get good at it. So in this case, page 3 is our first page of text if we included an abstract. Again, we see the header repeated throughout the paper. We see page number again in the top right-hand corner. At the very top of our text, we're going to see a repeat of the title from the title page. One of the things that you're also going to notice very quickly is that this is a very plain format. This page is set up with Times New Roman, 12-point font, and 1-inch margins. That's the standard settings that you'll see in Microsoft Word if you just open even a blank document. And really you want to stick with that. We don't want to use fancy fonts, we don't want to use fancy formatting, we want to be very, very plain. This is actually a feature of the format. It's really designed to be just kind of about the facts and not about fancy formatting. A very important feature of the APA format are what we call in-text citations. There are many different ways to do this, but in any case, we are giving the author, of the originator of the idea or the quote, credit for what they have contributed to our paper. In our first example, we're stating the author's thoughts or ideas but we're not directly quoting. In our second example you see here, we have a quote. Now, quotes are very important that you include them in quote marks, that they be written exactly, that you not change anything that the author wrote. Now, at the end of my quote, you notice that there is a parenthetical citation that says Welch 2014, and then a period afterwards. In APA, all citations are inside the sentence. They're never outside, which, by the way, is a distinguishing factor of the MLA format, and a place where students oftentimes get very confused. So be very careful with that. In the APA format, we keep things formal. We don't include attention getters. We are not trying to write anything that's a sort of a popular writing format. So be very careful with what you write, and again, focus on being professional, being academic in your voice, and not including yourself really in the paper. In fact, everything should be in third person. There are a few times when you might use the word I, but they should be strictly limited to you stating your opinion, and again, this should be a minor portion of your paper. The vast majority of all of your writing should be very formal, in the third person, in an academic voice. For our next example here, we have the reference page, which is a very important feature of the APA. I have several different examples here for you to look at. On the top, we have a journal. In this first example, this is a written journal that you would find on a shelf in a library. Our second example is much more common, and you're much more likely to encounter it. This is an electronic journal article. In fact, most likely most of your references will look like the second example. In some cases you may find a book, and our third and fourth examples are how you would cite a book. One of the important features of an electronic article is the inclusion of some kind of reference so that your reader will be able to find it. These are often referred to as either URLs or DOIs. The DOI is actually the preferred method, but oftentimes we cannot always find these. So we want to do one or the other whenever we can. In a URL, we're able to find a specific web page where that article can be found. In the DOI, we're giving kind of a library reference number, very similar to what you would have encountered in the Library of Congress system, the same kind of idea. Unfortunately, many students include a URL that looks something like we see here. This is an unreadable URL, and in fact, it's quite clear in looking at it that it's actually not going to be very useful. This is what we call a session URL. In other words, it's a one-time use URL created by the library system in which you are trying to find the article. If you click on this URL, you will not find anything. The clue to us that this is not something we want is that it's actually directly from the Chapman website, our Chapman Leatherby library. And if you see a URL like this, it's not going to work. If you pass it off to someone else, they're going to click on it and they're just going to get a link to the library. And this isn't what we're looking for. We're really looking for the original journal article. The next topic that I'd like to address briefly is what I like to call lazy quoting. And we see an interesting example in front of us right now. In the first case, at the very top of the page, we see that the student actually put a short quotation in quotation marks. Now the student left off the citation, which is not good. And then at the bottom of the page, we actually see a quote that looks pretty much correct. We see, again, a longer quote inside quotation marks, although it looks like the student might have possibly changed it around a bit. This one does include a citation, so that one's pretty much probably good. There's one in the middle, though, that is a big concern. You notice in the center here of this paper example, we have what I like to call a lazy quote. A lazy quote is where you take a quote and you sort of rearrange it a little bit, you change the words around, and you magically think that that quote's not really a quote anymore, and really that's your own idea. Well, you know what? It's not your own idea. It really is someone else's. At best, this is just on the line of full-on plagiarism, but you know, it might well be plagiarism, especially depending on how much you actually do here. If this is one case, kind of an accidental thing, then maybe we don't get too worried about it. But in a lot of cases, students will do this for large portions of their paper. This is bad. This is a no-no. We want to be very careful. Don't plagiarize. You will be caught. Most papers at Brandman are going to be put through turnitin.com, and you're going to get caught. It is just downright easy to catch a student plagiarizing at this point. Be careful with your quotes. Be sure that you're marking them correctly. Be sure you're giving credit where credit is due. For our last slide, I'm going to go back to the beginning of the presentation. When you're in trouble with the APA, when you don't know quite what to do, The best place to go, in my opinion, is the OWL at Purdue, a free service designed to help you with all of your writing needs. The Purdue English Department's done a tremendous job of making this service available to everyone absolutely for free. Please use it. I hope this presentation was helpful to you in getting the basics or getting a quick refresher on some of the main points of the APA. Have a good time writing.